I've been thinking about law enforcement and the use of force, as well as those who feel the need, the obligation to resist such authority. Sometimes they are criminals, these lawbreakers, and sometimes they are not in spirit anyway. They simply are compelled to push back against the pressure of the ruling power. I was at a friend's home with such thoughts idly floating in my head, and I was perusing his shelf of movies, DVDs. I come from a time when the stories would have been in books, not thin discs. But it's still a bunch of stories, and I saw two from the past that fit neatly into my thoughts about resisting authority. Some people just seem to have it in their blood. They don't like to be forced to do anything. They don't like to be told what to do. They object to that, sometimes almost in a blind and heedless way, not always by any specific complaint or rational agenda. Rather, a formless but definite dislike for the way things are going in general. And this displeasure usually gets them into trouble, which means confrontation with the authority, which they are going to like even less. From that point on, it's like a fuse has been lit, and it's only a matter of time until something blows. The two movies were Cool Hand Luke and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Luke's in a work detail prison because he got drunk and was cutting the heads off parking meters. A direct threat, violation, not to public safety, but to the permanent fixtures, the coin-chewing gargoyles of law and order. Randall Patrick McMurphy is an incorrigible carouser who has been in prison for fighting and statutory rape. Technical charges he disputes, and they've sent him to the hospital for evaluation. They think he's faking insanity to get out of work detail. Both now challenge the firmly established rules of order in their various environments, and in doing so they inspire the men around them, who had become hopeless, obedient servants to their masters, into hesitant, at first, and then open rebellion. There are times in both stories of great jubilation and deep human feeling, but the prison warden, the captain, and the head nurse, Ratched, are not going to allow this to exist, much less flourish. They have to crush this incipient hope. For both Luke and McMurphy, the men love him, they adore him, and they follow him. They are his apostles, and he is going to die for them. The head nurse goads one of the patients into killing himself, and McMurphy explodes into a rage and attacks her, tries to strangle her. She is injured and unable to speak when she returns. Murphy is given a lobotomy and is in a vegetative state. The huge half-Indian, who was the narrator of the tale, appalled at the sight of him, smothers McMurphy with a pillow and escapes from the hospital, so the final resolution of the story is a deep mixture of despair, death, and hope. Luke seems to have been beaten and punished into submission, which would indicate final victory for the captain and his penal system, breaking the men's spirit being the goal. But Luke escapes again on an instinctual suicidal mission to avoid that surrender of his will, and he is shot to death as he is delivering a key piece of the captain's pithy gospel. Now, what we have here is failure to communicate. Luke's fellow prisoners protest his shooting, and the mirror sunglasses of the deputy guard, which have figured so prominently in the story as the unassailable visage of authority, are crushed underfoot in the resulting struggle. This ending, too, is a mixture of terrible failure, if not outright triumph, at least an absolute insistence on rejecting any form of control or limitation. One thing is sure, both men, Luke and McMurphy, are seen as both cheerful fuck-ups and heroes. They are also firmly linked to robust sexual activity, and the worlds they find themselves in are dedicated to the extinction of that impulse. The people in control are seen as seriously disturbed control freaks, while those under their harsh command, despite being a motley bunch of degenerates, are portrayed as having what we would call a spark of humanity still flickering inside. In these stories, it is the role of authority to extinguish that flame, and the battle for the hero, even if he isn't aware of it, is to keep it burning. In both stories, the flame is blown out, but not before the torch is passed, so that the struggle, at least, will go on.